The world is at a watershed moment. Moms, farmers, doctors, and advocates have united to tackle the health issues facing our nation. Americans have been plagued by chronic illness, deteriorating soil, and toxic food. Our system of governance was corrupted by corporate interests. In defense of their freedom, Americans assembled in the streets. And then, we won. With 250 years of independence behind us, our freedom has emerged victorious. But now it's time to restore our health. The first leader to join us was Robert F. Kennedy Jr., humble but heroic, unafraid yet strategic. Bobby led the MAHA movement to the cabinet room of the White House. Lifted up by the heart of the nation and carried in the arms of the people, Secretary Kennedy and President Trump can now rewrite the laws of the land. But the people too need a base in Washington. We must establish a brand new temple for health, freedom, and the movement. Welcome to the MAHA Institute.
Hey, Destiny. Welcome. Come on up. Get up on stage. Let's have a chat, dude. Just getting all the right accounts up here. Looks like the invite system is being weird today.
I'd love to co-host, but I can't while I'm streaming. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries, no worries. I just
Okay.
figured because Christina can't make it today, so I figured I'd give you guys the spot.
I'd really appreciate it, but yeah, can't multitask that much.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Sweet. Hey, DT Dubs, Power to Charm, how y'all doing? Happy MAHA Monday. Yeah, are we streaming now, Kelly J?
Yes, we are. We are streaming to QUX TV, X Live, Rumble, Pilled, Kick, and YouTube.
Fantastic. So let's see here. Welcome to the Monday MAHA, our now once a week for now space in the Club MAHA community to talk all things MAHA, build community, inform, educate, inspire, and activate, get ourselves really together and going. I I've been working a lot lately, so I can't stay as tapped in as I would like to be. I know a bunch of stuff has happened this week. The one thing that's especially on my radar, and if you guys have more stuff that you want to talk about, please get up here and let me know or drop it in the purple pill, is that something recently launched last week called the MAHA Institute. I'm hoping Billy or Danielle from Council on Domestic Relations can join us today because they were there. So they can really give us the story. I think this is an American Values project, or sort of like a coalition project between American Values and some other folks. But this is sort of the organized grassroots moves to DC and sets up shop. You know, we got Bobby, he's in HHS, but now he's in government. And so to some degree, he's got an incredible amount of power and influence. And to some degree, his hands are tied, right? There's only so much he can do. So we need the continued grassroots advocacy, the representation in DC. And from what I understand, that's the MAHA Institute. And it doesn't have to only be the MAHA Institute, but this is it's a big move. And last week, I believe it was on Thursday, there was this all day, they called it a roundtable event. It was at the Willard Hotel in DC, which like one of the rooms, literally the window points at the Washington Monument. It's right there by the White House. At the Willard, they did this all-day event called the MAHA Roundtable, and it was to sort of announce the MAHA Institute and get just a whole bunch of wonderful people from across the movement, farmers, medical professionals, students, even product manufacturers and sort of like the financiers behind organic and like MAHA aligned products, all got to get up on stage and have panels and talk about what is going on here. What are we doing? What's the next move? And it was really cool. I tuned in all day. If someone has a link to that, it was a Vimeo presentation. I would imagine that is still there and that people could tune into it even now. I would love to share that. But yeah, so one of the things I'd like to do today is read the American Values thread that they created to sort of announce this and recap a little bit of that event. But man, I do hope Billy or Danielle can pop in and share with us because, like I said, they were there, they were in the room. And I don't know if any of you guys have been to events like this, but no matter how good the panels are, no matter how good the plenaries and the keynote talks are, the conversations in the hallways and in the mixers and all that other stuff are really where the action is. So it would be really cool if we can get their perspective on it. We'll see if they pop in at some point. Also, just worth announcing is, so some of you know that I've been going through a healing journey of my own. I've been struggling with gut issues, gastrointestinal issues, and sort of second order health complications going with that pretty much my whole life, but especially the last 15 years. And I recently contracted a really big and awesome account here on X, Cooking with Chris, at C with 3 O's, K with Chris, Cook with Chris. He's awesome. He's got like 200,000 followers. He's constantly posting recipes and his grocery store and farmers market hauls. And he goes down to farms nearby and buys stuff directly from farms. Awesome account. One of the things he does is helps people directly with their healing journeys. So whether you're overweight and feeling sluggish or have skin issues, or like myself, I have skin issues and I'm chronically and throughout my entire life underweight, you can work with him directly. He'll craft meal plans. He'll walk you through getting lab tests so that you have real data to work with, all the important biomarkers, just all the important stuff. And he will walk with you step by step through your own healing journey. And so we're doing this together and we're doing it live. We're going to be doing this together, and we've done a couple of these so far, but starting next Tuesday, we're going to have a consistent schedule of once a week, Tuesday from 3 to 3:45 p.m. Eastern, we're going to get on a live stream or a space here in the Club MAHA community, and we're going to use my experience as a case study and also talk more generally about healing journeys. And I want that to be an opportunity, not just for people to sort of like learn from me, but to even ask questions of Chris. And if you get inspired enough, maybe even work with him directly, just reach out to him and say, hey, I'm on board. I want to do this. And we can get you a little bit of a discount too. It covers his time and his expertise, but also the naturopathic doctor he works with, the personal trainer he works with. It also covers the lab tests that are required to get the data to help you really find your way. So I am hoping over the course of weeks and months as I go through this myself that I can convince some other people to join me on this journey. And if you do join me on this journey, we can create group chats, we can do sort of private spaces, and we can really have a little pocket community to support each other in our challenges, in our victories, in our frustrations, and really feel like we're not in this alone, because that's like one of the hardest parts. But yeah, anyway, enough about that. Kelly J, what's on your mind?
I found it. They did stream it to X as well, so I put that in the Jumbotron. And
fantastic.
I just found the Vimeo link too, so I'll add that to the reply.
Fantastic. And thank you, because that also reminds me that the MAHA Institute has their own Twitter account. You will see that up in the nest at uppercase MAHA _I Institute. And it does look like it's an American Values project because they've got the little American Values organization badge there. They're an awesome organization. And the last few weeks, since I've been working like literally 80 hours a week, I've been using American Values X feed as my cheat sheet for these spaces, because they usually have not just every day some really worthwhile update post about what's happening in MAHA, but usually by the weekend they have a recap post of just like everything that's happened on the week. So American Values, please follow them. They're fantastic. They were huge Bobby supporters during his campaign. And then when he coined the term MAHA, they just sort of transitioned into being huge MAHA boosters while staying very proactively supportive of everything Bobby's doing at HHS. So they are wonderful. And again, just one more reminder, if there are specific things that are going on this weekend, in this past week or this coming week that you know of in MAHA and you want to talk about it, either grab a mic and I'm happy to give you the floor and we'll talk stuff out, or drop it in the purple pill. If you can't comment in the purple pill, it probably just means that you need to join the Club MAHA community. That link is right up at the top of the space. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into this American Values thread about the MAHA Institute launch. But hey, Kelly J, if you have that open, could I ask you to stream the video in the parent post on that American Values thread? It's like 1.5 minutes long. It's a really nice, just like super brief intro to this whole thing they've started.
Oh, you want me to play the audio?
Yeah, do you mind?
Yeah, I should be able to do that. Hang on just a moment.
Yeah, no sweat. Des, I'm inviting you to co-host it if you want to take that spot, just in case we get some requests to speak or anything like that and I miss it. Awesome. Welcome, love you, glad you're here. Always glad when you show up. I really appreciate it. It's such a wonderful vote of confidence because you're such a rock star, dude.
No, I love it. Thank you for having me. I wanted to remind everybody to go ahead and host a space, tag people that you know would enjoy the conversation, and give everyone up here a follow and support America Mission and the MAHA movement.
Oh, God bless you. I always forget those basic housekeeping items. It's so funny.
I always do in my own spaces, but in other people's spaces, I always remember to do it.
This is what's so clutch about co-hosts. It's like you've got your biggest booster there. Like, dude, don't forget, self-promote. And it's like, okay, fine. You're not going to do it. I'll do it for you. I got you. I love it. I love it. It's so good. But yeah, Kelly J, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure all the streams are muted too, so you wouldn't have all this double blasting. So.
Oh,
okay.
For sure. Thanks.
All right. So 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
World is at a watershed moment. Moms, farmers, doctors, and advocates have united to tackle the health issues facing our nation. Americans have been plagued by chronic illness, deteriorating soil, and toxic food. Our system of governance was corrupted by corporate interests. In defense of their freedom, Americans assembled in the streets. And then, we won. With 250 years of independence behind us, our freedom has emerged victorious. But now, it's time to restore our health. The first leader to join us was Robert S. Kennedy Jr., humble but heroic, unafraid yet strategic. Bobby led the MAHA movement to the cabinet room of the White House. Lifted up by the heart of the nation and carried in the arms of the people, Secretary Kennedy and President Trump can now rewrite the laws of the land. But the people too need a base in Washington. We must establish a brand new template for health, freedom, and the movement. Welcome to the MAHA Institute.
Thank you for that.
Mic drop.
Yeah, for real though, right? This is just like American values again and again, at least in their content production, because that's most of my interaction with them. Though I have had the pleasure of interacting with several of their team members multiple times while I was sort of on the road campaigning. They're awesome. And the stuff they put together just feels really polished. And in the whole like grassroots movement building thing, American Values is what you might refer to as a Grasstops organization. They sort of hang out at the top of the stack for grassroots movements. My place is usually somewhere closer to what you would call grassroots or even grass seeds, community level. And I even love sort of interacting across communities, but it's often right here at that direct interfacing with real people, getting them hyped up, oriented, and activated space. But so American Values, they just keep doing these wonderful, polished things. With that video, the thing that jumped out at me most, and it might have sort of slipped right past you, that I thought was super important, is how they framed Bobby's place in this. MAHA is not Bobby's movement. Bobby was the first leader to join us, right? Like MAHA was MAHA before MAHA. Millions of Americans have been focused on health-related issues, whether it be food, air, water, soil, or medicine for generations now. And Bobby's been a part of that for what, 20 or 40 years, a really long time. And so when it comes to this, even though Bobby sort of coined the term MAHA, it's really like he was the first leader in this modern era that we have that joined us on this journey successfully and established a strong position within an administration to do something. And I love that, because when this went from these values under Bobby's presidential campaign to these values under MAHA and Bobby joining Trump, the main positive I saw from that is that regardless of what happened with Bobby's run, this now had a banner to live under that we could carry forward. And as we do that, it's important that we both uplift and show gratitude and make the most of the association with Bobby Kennedy, that we also make sure that it has its own life, that it has its own vitality, that it has its own identity. For a number of reasons. One is because this is not Bobby. Bobby is of this, as are we. And so this needs to really represent all of us. But also, if anything were to happen, if anything terrible came to light to compromise Bobby's image, if bad actors managed to drive a wedge between Bobby and those of us who care about all of these issues, for all those sorts of reasons, it's really important that this movement have its own identity and not just be Bobby plus the rest of us. So I really like how American Values framed this, and I love how it's being positioned. And I'm excited to see where it goes. So with that, I want to read a little bit through this thread, and I also just really want to turn this into a conversation. So anyone who wants to jump in, toss a hand up. Let's start talking about it. Please, if you're into it, grab a mic and we can take this conversation anywhere you guys want. We've got like up to an hour and 40 minutes, and then I've got to run and go see my mom for a belated Mother's Day thing. So starting here at the top on this thread, which I actually will share now into the space, should pop up at the top of the nest here. The MAHA movement is officially moving into DC. The MAHA Institute is hosting its inaugural event, bringing long overdue attention to issues ignored for decades. For years, people have fought for medical freedom without a real platform. Now we finally have one. Co-President Tony Lyons opened by outlining the MAHA Institute's core goals. I've known Bobby Kennedy for more than 15 years. I have no doubt whatsoever that he was put on this planet to do the work that he's doing now. The MAHA movement has the ability to set up a system where we can really be a city on a hill. We can really be the kind of country that we all want it to be, and we can protect our children. That's what we're going to do as the MAHA Institute. We're going to be an incubator for ideas, for policies that really impact the American people. The MAHA movement is really about mothers. It's about mothers wanting to take care of their children, and they see that their children have been poisoned. Half the children in the United States have a chronic disease that has to change. This is the time to address them. I think it's a powerful statement, but I do think it maybe hyper-focuses a little too much. It's an appropriate, powerful statement, especially because MAHA moms are like the most powerful bloc, and we need to proactively center them and bolster them and activate them. But also, I'm not a mom. I don't have kids. I am all about this. So like, let's be careful not to sort of like underplay the rest of us. But anyway, Co-President Mike Gorton followed, sharing the origins of the MAHA Institute. It was born out of the MAHA movement, which comes from Bobby's campaign for president. All of us here are used to how government in America typically runs, where the large corporate interests dominate the system and they control the outcomes of our government. There have been people around the country who have been fighting this for years against enormous odds. Again, MAHA was MAHA before MAHA. And now, through really one of the most inspiring movements in American history, all of these people around the country have coalesced into the movement, the MAHA movement, which carried Donald Trump into office and Bobby Kennedy into leadership at HHS. The MAHA Institute is serving the function of helping to coordinate and channel the energy of all these people around the country and connect them with people in government. Now, this is interesting because I feel like this is one of the things we've been missing most. And I believe this is true across pretty much all movements that have sort of majority or at least plurality support amongst people, is it's not that there aren't enough people in that care about these issues. It's that we're not organized well enough. We're not connected well enough. The platforms we have, the social media platforms we have, the financing platforms like crowdfunding and whatnot are either intentionally or unintentionally not designed to most effectively and efficiently help us organize around issues, both in connecting with each other and in pooling resources to do so. So Billy and Danielle talk about this with the Council of Domestic Relations, that often we have either an organization problem or a problem where the money that's at the Grasstops doesn't reach the communities, the state level activists, the community level activists, and that part still remains to be seen. But I am excited to see the MAHA Institute stand itself up, place itself in DC with the stated goal of coordinating and channeling the energy of us, the people of MAHA around the country. And of course, it remains to be seen how effective they are at that. But even just as a point of awareness and sort of an inspiration, it's great to know they exist and that they're doing this work. So then Callie Means spoke, and he explained how MAHA is striking fear into DC lobbyists. Now, I know that Callie and Casey are a little bit of polarizing figures. Some people have some thoughts about them that aren't so gracious. They're worried that they might be sort of like industry plants. But I do find it interesting that they keep saying the right things. I don't know them well enough, so I don't know how their actions back it up or don't, but they do keep saying appropriate things. We're on the precipice now of being able to have an adult conversation about the facts. It's shocking to me how many lobbyists come in and they're not lobbying for policy. They're saying it's going to scare the American people to get the facts out. They're putting so much pressure on President Trump and so much pressure on Secretary Kennedy to not release facts about these foundational factors that are impacting our metabolic health. Metabolic health. This is essentially another way of talking about gut health, which is the journey I'm on, and many of you probably are on or would benefit from committing to, because like many, if not most of us have metabolic health issues. The statement from the administration is we are going to have a discussion about the facts. We are going to get the facts on the table, and we are going to change the world. Now, let's see if this follows through, right? I personally feel like week after week, we're seeing really big things happening. For some people, it's like never enough, right? Especially if something comes out and it sounds like it's a watered down version of what they want, or even the opposite of what they want. And they go, oh, the whole thing was BS. We've been lied to. But it's just kind of not how it works at the top level. There's too many confounding factors. I see week after week, the banning of synthetic dyes, the placebo-controlled study requirement for new vaccines, the MAHA Commission, like just time and time again, we're seeing things that matter. I'm really excited to see the upcoming food guidelines, where Bobby has taken it from the inscrutable 500-page document he inherited from the Biden administration down to like 4 or 5 pages that probably are like, eat grass-fed meat and drink raw milk, and get sunshine and put your feet in the dirt. So whether this is lip service or not, it is saying the right things. And there are all these other leaders in this space that I do feel like are squarely on the right side, that they don't really freak me out too much. So then we had Mary Holland of Children's Health Defense, which was an organization that Bobby was on the board of, may have even helped found, I don't recall. She emphasized how MAHA is finally giving a voice to those silenced for years. I've been in this movement for more than 20 years, and we have all been waiting for this moment, and it is momentous. Children are the most vulnerable of our society, in any society. Babies can't talk, children can't vote. To go to school, they have to be subjected to all kinds of rules, including forced vaccinations. That's my own addition here to this statement. They can't contribute to candidates. They are truly our most vulnerable citizens. I believe that we as adults have a responsibility to our children to nurture the next generation and to smooth the path for them. I believe that together we can make this happen. Then we had Zen Honeycutt of Moms Across America, who spoke out about how for the first time an administration is finally addressing the critical issues raised by people like her for years. We've been silenced, we've been vilified, and the pushback is all because the government of previous administrations has been hiding critical information that we could use to protect our children and to have our families be healthier again. Now, as an aside, they don't just do this with health issues, right? And we've been hearing over the last months or so that they'll run studies, and then if it goes against what they wanted them to say, they just won't release them, right? The facts are inconvenient. But they do this with economics as well. Like there's this conversation over the last several years about whether the United States will enter a recession or not. And it seems like such a load of crap, because when they started having this conversation about whether we will enter a recession, they were also adjusting the algorithm, the formula for how they calculate it. They started removing critical things from the consumer price index so that the numbers would look better, right? Like they would start removing things like energy, housing, and food from the consumer price index so that it didn't look like we were already in a recession. But meanwhile, those things were going up incredibly, and those are our basic monthly expenses. So this isn't just health we're talking about when the government tries to sort of hide critical information. And it makes it impossible, really, until we sort of have enough of a push to get new leadership like we have this time. It makes it impossible to have a real conversation, let alone real policy change to address these issues. So here we go. We have been deeply betrayed by previous administrations, is what she says. So there you go, a more concise way of saying what I just said. As a former lifelong Democrat come independent who voted Republican, I'm very proud of this current administration and what is happening in America today. Finally, there's an investigation on the cause of autism. Operation Stork Speed is exposing and focusing on baby formula. They're removing food dyes, which is historic. They're looking at glyphosate in vaccines after 9 years of submitting that information to our CDC and FDA. We're at a critical point in history. We mothers are calling on every Republican and Democrat to make America healthy again and to stop accepting the pressure from the corporations. Now, one of the things I keep looking at over and over again is, will the Democrats get their heads out their asses, at least in regard to health-related issues, and start working with folks like Bobby, or at least with these independent leaders who were not Republicans, they weren't even independents. Many of them considered themselves Democrats until fairly recently, when they realized they had no support over there because corporations took over years ago. Will they get their heads out their asses and score some wins for themselves, frankly, by working together on these issues and making some real progress? And it's an open question. And at the end of the day, I only care insofar as it will help make change happen faster. If they are dead set on continuing to lose, then I say let them. I've been tired of the uniparty for 20 years, ever since I became of voting age. So I could give a shit whether the Democrats choose to implode or not. But I do hope that, we the people, MAHA, obviously, we've already woken up to this, but I hope more and more we the people, people who count themselves as Democrats, or at least left-leaning, and in this election couldn't move to the right or even to the center in their vote because they were too afraid, right? They were too afraid of the boogeyman that people have made Trump out to be, to deny the Democrats their vote. But I'm praying, at least in the midterms, when there isn't a president on the line, but there are Congress, there is the senators, there are governors, that if they're fed up enough about this, they'll be willing to deny the Democrats their vote. And a lot of that work is frankly on us, to organize effectively, to stand up independent options for office, especially down ballot, that represent these folks who are not going to see themselves as right-leaning and might not even see themselves as independent per se, but will vote for a non-Democrat that authentically seems to represent their values, their policy priorities, and frankly, like, their vibe, right? And so far that hasn't happened, but we really have an opportunity here to do that. I wish Levi was here today. Levi Leatherberry, the chairman of the We the People Party, because one of the things that he is really big on is that the We the People Party is not partisan. It doesn't have a prescribed platform. It is a container for states and communities to have an independent party banner where the actual voters, not even the leaders of a local or state party, but the members of a local or state party under the We the People banner, have the power to determine the platform. So in a place like John, I believe you're in Oklahoma. If you follow through on what you said about a month ago, that you wanted to reach out to Levi and possibly get something going with We the People, you guys could end up with a platform that's rather conservative, that's rather right-leaning. And I'm not trying to project onto you that that's what your values are, but I'm just saying, like Oklahoma, traditionally more right-leaning, your We the People platform could really represent that. And then if some folks in the Bay Area, California, wanted to use the We the People party to organize, theirs could actually be quite progressive, quite, a more pejorative way of saying it in this community might be woke, but they would have an independent banner to do so, to deny the corporate Democrats their vote, which to me would still be a net positive. Right? It still shows that people are not woke, but awake enough to go beyond the lip service of the candidates that are presented to them and stand up their own candidates from their own communities that they know actually represent their sincerely held beliefs. And if California remains like deep blue, but kicks the Democrats to the curb in favor of an independent option that becomes like the new left, I think that's actually really powerful, and might, even without changing their left-leaning values, might provide more surface area, more opportunity for folks that are more right-leaning or center independent to work directly with those folks, even without us needing to change our own values or perspective to do so. Because really, I feel like a lot of what keeps us apart in effectively working together on issues that we actually share a perspective on, or at least outcome preferences on, isn't that we align our political philosophies. It's that we don't have the wedges driven between us because of sort of like corporate interests or entrenched politicians who are bought by corporate interests that will use any difference in our cultural values to be like, no, you can't work with them. You're scared of them. I'm not scared of these people. I love all you fools, you know, like it really doesn't matter if we have the same perspective or the same cultural background. We don't, you know what I mean? Most of us do not. And most of us are not going to. What matters is first and foremost, the ability to respect and appreciate our diversity, like where we come from and our differences. And then the ability to put aside sometimes the places where we legitimately disagree or even are like concerned about the other person's viewpoints to discover and work together on the things we share. And I find this critical for a number of reasons, not just because until you do that, it's almost impossible to make progress on those things, but also if you can do that and make progress on those things in collaboration with these folks, you can create real relationships, right? Like you don't have to be super fond of your uncle if he's the crazy racist or your cousin who's the blue-haired sort of like nose-piercing kid, like whatever. But you're still family and there's still love there, even if you don't agree on much. If we can work together on some things, we can soften to the point that we can at least communicate on the other things. We can figure out the middle ground on the other things. They've done such a great job of keeping us apart on that stuff. It really, really kind of breaks my heart. But yeah, that's a little soapbox rant. That was actually the end of the thread, which is unfortunate because it was a long event. It was all day. There was panel after panel, ranchers, farmers, students, scientists, doctors, financiers and business owners. I really encourage you guys up at the top, if you just swipe to the left twice, the first post up there in the nest, the very first post, is at least some of the panels from the MAHA Institute Roundtable event. But again, it was on Vimeo. It was an all-day event. If you have a job where you can pop in your headphones and just listen to something while you're doing your thing, do yourself a favor and do it. It was just so inspiring. It was such a great reminder of how many bases we have covered and how many wonderful, activated and committed, competent and experienced people we have in this movement, dedicated to doing the work, who are being organized and connected with one another. I'm hoping to go back through that whole day's event and start sort of cherry picking people out and getting them in here as guests on the space and getting them over onto the Wednesday Club MAHA podcasts to talk with us there too. From here, I'm kind of curious where we should go, what you guys would like to talk about. I'm going to click here on the purple pill and see if some folks have made any interesting comments. And anyone here already up on stage, hey, just pop open your mic and like feel free to just popcorn some stuff out. Where should we go with this today?
Well, I was just wanting to say that, if you want to go ahead, but I'll just make a quick comment. I really like the idea of this MAHA Institute, and I did follow American Values because they look like they have great content. And you're right about the division. It's been so saddening to see, and we really just need to come together. And I can't stress that enough as being so important in the movement for MAHA.
100%. I've been waiting on this for a while, and I didn't expect it to happen too quickly because this was, I've said it like 3 times now. MAHA was MAHA before MAHA, but it up until recently, the left was sort of the standard bearer of this movement, and it seems like the wind really got knocked out of their sails. First with the first Trump administration, and then of course with the second Trump administration. And I don't cast any dispersions against them for that. The same thing kind of happens on the right when the left wins. It's like, oh God, what do we do? And they've been fighting for so long, and corporates have kept winning for so long. It's hard to keep the excitement and the energy high, and sometimes even more importantly, it's hard to keep the donor dollars flowing when it feels you're not making any headway. So MAHA popped up. It's been represented so far as more of a center right thing. It happened so fast. It was going to take a little while. But it does feel like it's happening. First with Bobby getting in at HHS, and now with the grassroots sort of getting oriented. And I'm just hopeful that it's effective, that the organization aspect is effective, and that we can do something with it.
The crazy thing, though, is MAHA doesn't have to be it's not a party. It's not Republican. It's not Democrat. It's just a movement to get people being healthy, growing their own food, getting away from the pesticides. Like, this is silly that they're even trying to divide a movement just because that it was something that Bobby was running on. But it's something that we as Americans need, is to be healthy, to make our own food, learn how to make your own food. And it's not just making and growing your own food. It's like, I really feel like we need to be paying attention to what they're doing with our water, with water rights, how they're diverting our water. I think that that's going to be their vector of attack on us as American citizens. Like, some people let me see if I can put this into words, because I was listening to a space earlier today where in Texas, there's a town that's grown really fast, but the developers want to control the water rights. Well, anyone who's smart is not going to give up their shares of water rights to some type of a contractor, because then they control everything, right? Then the corporation, the contractor controls the water rights. And I think that that's a vector that we're going to have to pay close attention to when it comes to the local farmers, when it comes to everything. Is going to be, you control our water, they control us, most definitely. You know, I used to think it was food. Now I'm starting to think about water. I'm just putting that thought out there. But this movement, like, I was independent. I was right of center for a long time until, 2020 happened. And then, like, my worldviews changed, my education changed. This movement doesn't have to be right or left. And we've got to find a way to get people to see that.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you brought up water rights. There's a really weird tapestry of water rights in this country, and even beyond, right? Like, one of the biggest things that's been on my radar for a while with water rights are companies like Nestle, boo hiss, who literally, as corporate policy, argue that water isn't a human right, and buy aquifers. Like in Brazil, I believe Nestle owns like one of the largest aquifers in the country. And it's insane. This corporate entity owns the water, right? Like the people's water. And that's terrifying to me. And then you've got, like, in California, during a drought, when everyone was being sort of strong-armed into reducing their water consumption, you still had a bottled water company or multiple companies just hoovering up millions of gallons of water to bottle it and sell it at a profit, which is just insane to me. And then you have this weird tapestry of, like, in some states, you're not allowed to have rain barrels. Like, the water that literally lands on your property, you're not allowed to collect and save. And I've heard more recently that in Colorado, if you live up in, like, the Front Range outside of Denver, you have a certain water rights allotment. And if you don't use it, you lose it forever, which is also crazy to me. And I might be getting the details wrong, but still, it just sounds crazy to me. So I think you're bang on. Like, yes, we need to deal with the food, 100%. We're making progress. Yes, we need to deal with the medicine, 100% making progress. Where are we with not just water rights, but also like water pollution, right? Because, of course, Bobby's at HHS. So not being president, he doesn't have much influence over EPA. We're hoping the MAHA Commission and his relationship with Lee Zeldin will lead to positive policy there. But Lee Zeldin doesn't really seem like a MAHA guy. He's a little more of a corporate guy. So will he make moves to address water pollution? All these factories that just dump horrible things in the water, they kill our wildlife. They make it so we can't even swim in this water, let alone consume what comes out of it. And that's really scary to me. Now, I live right on the Chesapeake Bay, and I grew up within like half an hour of the Chesapeake Bay. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. For a very long time, the bay was dying. And it was dying for a few reasons, one of which is that we were overfishing the oysters. 150 years ago, the oyster population in the Chesapeake Bay was so large that it would filter the entire body of the bay in like 3 days. Now imagine 150 years ago how much less pollution was actually being kicked into the bay, plus having a massive oyster population. That water was gorgeous, pristine. So we overfished the oysters. We also have a lot more commercial activity. You got all the cargo ships. You also have all the chicken farms along the bay, the Tyson and the Purdue, just literally kicking shit. And the feed, you get arsenic, you get phosphorus, you get all this stuff. You end up with these giant algae blooms creating dead zones. So for the last 10, maybe 15 years now, the Bay has finally been getting their heads out of their asses. The state of Maryland and I believe Virginia has also been kicking in on this. And they've been seeding massive oyster projects. And I think what they do is they plant the seeds, the babies, up in the estuaries. And then as they mature, they bring them down into the bay proper. And they're doing like billions and billions of them. And apparently they're making great progress. And one of the things I was excited to see is right down here where I am in Southern Maryland, my local farmer's market, there's an oyster farmer. And they seed their oysters in the Patuxent River. And then to bring them to maturity, they pop them over into the bay. And so they start in water that's not exactly pristine, but they grow to maturity over in the bay. And it's just a part of this tapestry of economically beneficial activity, especially locally economically beneficial activity that provides for the cleansing of our natural environment versus the depletion of our natural environment. And this is, I think, a wonderful place where the traditionally more conservative idea of like profitability, economic activity, economic stimulation is more important than the pristine stewardship of the natural environment can actually dovetail and be like, well, why can't it just be both at the same time? And in fact, when we talk about economics, it's usually about solving pain points and adding value. And we've started to be able to quantify the cost, the public health cost, the economic loss and the collapse of things like fisheries and biodiversity. And when you start quantifying those costs, well, now you can start talking dollars and cents about why it's worthwhile from an economic standpoint to do things the left has wanted to do for generations just because it's sort of like values and ethics better, and just happens to also be better for public health. And I think that's one of the places to really dovetail all of this together. I want to give a shout out to Augustus here real quick. Hey, bro, man, long time no see. Welcome to the space, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, Damo? I'm good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, for sure, man. Glad to see you here. Yeah, feel free to chime in if you got anything on your mind, man. I see Sally's got her hand up.
Yeah, I just came in because of the title of the room, the MAHA Institute.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as I know, basically, it's like I got a lot of information on it.
Oh, well, hook me up, man. I know not enough.
So basically, Dell with the MAHA Action MAHA Alliance pack had basically gotten the MAHA trademark, right? And he was giving a hard time to RFK Jr. and other organizations with basically hoarding that trademark, Dell Bigtree.
Yeah. I've heard a little about that controversy. I sort of kept quiet because I'm a couple of degrees removed from it, but I hear he just left the org.
So yeah, what basically happened was he sat down with Tony Lyons and they came to an agreement where he dissolves the organizations and gives the trademark back to RFK Jr., who's now giving it to Tony Lyons to basically create the MAHA Institute, which is an offshoot of
American values.
Values. And they're sitting down with people like Billy and Danielle, and who are the creators of the Council on Domestic Relations, or CODER.
Yeah.
And
they're homies.
And basically they're taking on that initiative of what CODER is, which is basically taking grassroots organizations and creating a platform and a streamline to HHS for them. And that's basically what the MAHA Institute's going to be, as far as I know. And I know that they're going to have an event on Wednesday. I got tickets to in Washington, D.C. And that's going to be for a featured film that they're backing called Follow the Silenced. And me and my wife are going to go there, and there should be a lot of people from the MAHA Institute there. I spoke with Billy this morning. He's got a couple more meetings with Tony. But basically, I told him, listen, you know, if Coder is going to be taking on a contract with the Institute, I want to get involved, and I'd be happy to offer my services. But I'm not trying to listen, bro, like, I'm sick and tired of these organizations, these satellite programs. I really am. I'm sick and tired of them because all they do is repurpose content that Bobby makes, that RFK Jr. is making, and they throw fancy events that nobody can afford to go to. And
preach, bro.
And that's all they do. And it's like, I do that better than them. And I'm just a one-man band, me and my wife. We're just a one-man band, two-man band, woman-man band. And we do it better than them. I mean, our Instagram account supporting the MAHA movement has almost 120,000 followers. It's that simple to me, you know, like, we're creating the content, we're pushing the narrative, we're helping further the agenda more than these multi-million-dollar organizations.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because like I share a lot of your frustrations, and I know a bunch of folks that sort of share this feeling like all they do is pay high salaries to each other and do big like hotel and convention center events and stuff, and that money never reaches the state and local activists, which is a frustration I share. There's an issue there for sure. There is a place for them, this sort of idea of Grasstops, where even just having that presence and that structure it keeps the high level networking active and consistent and going. The issue that I think a lot of us find is how much clout they get for doing so when there's so many of us like you and me, and then even just like average everyday people that are fully committed to this that never really get any credit. But more than credit, we rarely get resources coming our way, and we're just fighting every day with the change in our pockets.
Right.
And if we got a little more resources, a little more connection, a little more clout and recognition, this would actually go a lot better. This would actually be a lot more powerful.
I totally agree. And the thing is that it's like, dude, what are you doing to actually further the agenda for RFK Jr.? Like, what are you doing to push the conversation into legislation? Because all
that is a
you're
question.
doing is making videos.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see the answer to that question. Like, if those videos are getting millions of views, it continues the tapestry and sort of the heartbeat of awareness that spreads, and that is valuable. But like you said, just as like a two-person show, you guys are producing tons of content that gets ultimately millions of views.
Millions.
And in this generation, like with our homie Ian Carroll, like millions of followers, millions and millions and millions of views. He's just a dude that points a camera at himself ultimately. And it's about the information he effectively brings together and shares.
He's a one-man band, dude. Like,
yeah, he doesn't need millions of dollars in funding to do it.
$10,000 production team, you know. He doesn't rake in millions of dollars to do it. He just does it because he's passionate about it. But
right, and then you connect him with someone like Bob Bailey, and you get the production value on top of the information he puts together, and now you got two people and just like literally a feature film worthy piece of content. Two people.
So you get where I'm coming from, and all I'm saying is that like that the MAHA Institute is giving me hope right now. The MAHA
Good. I'm glad that's your takeaway.
Hope, because like as far as I've been doing the digging the past like week and a half on these people and asking around to all of the inner circle people, and this is the information I got, is what I shared. It was that they're basically going to take the coder concept of dealing with grassroots organizations and getting them the platform and giving them the springboard that they need to get federal resources. That is good stuff. That's what's going to actually create change in this country.
That's right.
And if they're really about that, then I'm all for offering my services to them and helping them in any which way possible. Whether that's networking, policy, creative, communications. I'm there to give them an arm and a leg. You know, I think that it's very important for them to have the A team available.
Hell yeah.
But
hell yeah, bro. I'd love to see it. Billy and Danielle are heroes.
Sally dropped off. My bad, Sally.
Yeah, totally. Des, what's going on? What are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say, like, I posted a link to follow The Silenced. I absolutely love it. I still have, like, I think 40 minutes left of it to watch, but I've watched like the first hour and 15, and it's really, really, really phenomenal. I can't stress enough how important watching that film is. I'm sure everyone in here knows I advocate for vaccine injured, and this is a big deal. I know almost every single person that's in that film. I know them personally. You know, Brianne Dressen's in it. You've got Ernest Ramirez is in it, who lost his son to the Pfizer vaccine. It's absolutely phenomenal. Mickey did such a great job on this film. And I know Texas, there's a program, what are they called? Texas for, was it health ethics or vaccine something? I forgot what they're called, but they helped fund that film. And which is great, because they're a lot of the help behind people like Mary Talley Bowden, and just a lot of people who are, you know, these are MAHA people. They're definitely MAHA people, and the film is phenomenal. I'm excited for you to go up there, Augustus. You're going to have a great time.
Thanks, Destiny. Yeah, me and my wife got tickets for Wednesday to see it in person, like at the screening. And it should be like a small networking event there too. I talked to Terrence K. Williams. He said he's trying to go. I sent him the link to get a ticket.
Can you shoot me that link, bro? I'm only like an hour and a half outside of DC.
Yeah. Just 1 second.
You're gonna love it. It's gonna be such a great event. I bet. I would go. I definitely would have gone if I had time up earlier, but I do have some appointments this week I have to take. But it's gonna be great. Like, the movie it's really good. I mean, Mickey's done so many good films about the pandemic, but this one is different because the pandemic series was very particular to like gain of function and the origins and everything. So it's a kind of different timeline. This is like very current. This is like the lives of other Americans right now, in reflection of the pandemic. And everybody who supports that film has read RFK's book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Like, it's like the staple behind a lot of these Mickey Willis films.
Yeah, I love the commercial that they did actually for the campaign. Did you ever get a chance to see that?
Yeah, like Batman. It's amazing.
It's like turning RFK Jr. literally into Batman. It was so well done. Cost an arm and a leg, but totally worth it. Totally worth it. I mean, I haven't seen something that good in political, in politics, like, ever.
I'll see if I can find it. If I can, I'll put it up in the nest.
Yeah, if you could, that'd be great. It's I think called like Independence or something like that. I forget. But it was so good, dude. I've like used that as a reference for other video production projects I've worked on. I'm like, okay, guys, so this is the theme. Watch this RFK video. Yo, MAHA Damo. I posted the link to the show in your DMs chat in your back channel here on X.
Oh, dope, man. Thank you.
Check your back channel.
Got it. I will check that out immediately. Yeah, I'd like to make it to that. Hey, Misty, welcome to the stage.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the space too. It's very important topics that it just doesn't seem like enough headway is being made in the movement. And I know that a lot of that depends on policy and things of that nature. A couple of my concerns outside of the vaccines, well, including with the vaccines, the childhood vaccine schedule. From what I understand, other countries have kind of moved to the same schedule that we have. But I know some years ago, other countries were not even giving vaccines to their children until they were the age of 2 years old or 4 years old.
And that at least makes more sense, right? Their immune system is a little further along.
Right. Yeah. And instead of just giving them to them, the day that they're born. And my son developed epilepsy after he got his 6-month set of shots, which included like 6 shots all at one time. Plus there was a couple of them that were combination shots. So it's too much on their bodies. Their bodies need to be developed more before they're vaccinated, for those who do believe in vaccinating. But aside from the vaccines, what you're speaking about with the water, I know that a few decades ago, there was a microbiologist that had a research project, and she chose to focus on why the oysters in the Gulf of America, at that point, the Gulf of Mexico, were dying off. So she found out that it was generally because of the Navy ships that were being picked up and scrubbed off, and the bottoms of them being cleaned with toxic chemicals.
Of course.
And yeah, she tried to push forward to get them to stop doing that in that manner, and to stop using those toxic chemicals that were going into the waters and killing off, the oysters along with other sea life. So,
and was that mostly, do you know if that was mostly just along the coast? I don't even know if oysters grow further away than like the coastal shelf, but was that mostly just like coastal activity?
Right, correct. Because their bay, where they were cleaning the ships was right there at the coast. So, of course, it does go out into the further body of waters, the toxins do, and affect all of the marine life. But also, they denied the request to do that or change it or pay any attention to it.
Sure.
So, that's one thing, is the toxins that are being put in the water affecting the marine life, and then the rest of the water, bodies of water.
Yeah. Well, I have to imagine even just the sort of like the diesel fuel or whatever that these cargo ships use, they're not efficient, and they're not exactly built to like burn cleanly and prevent seepage into the water itself.
Right.
So that's not ideal. And when you talked about the Gulf of America, Gulf of Mexico at the time, it reminded me about the Deepwater Horizon disaster, the oil platform, and it leaked for so long before they could get it capped. And I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the things they did I'm using air quotes here, not that you can see me. One of the things they did to get rid of the oil was they used this like binding agent that really just made it all sink to the bottom. And I wonder to this day what impact that had on at least the floor of the Gulf, the life at the floor of the Gulf, because most of that stuff is probably still sitting on the floor of the Gulf as sludge. Now I don't know how sedimentation works at the bottom of a Gulf. It's possible that that's 2 feet under sediment now and matters less. I don't know, but I know that had to have an impact, because it itself was like a chemical binding agent, and then it was binding oil, and oil isn't exactly conducive to biological life.
Right. And I'm sure it killed all of the floor scavengers, and the coral that's there off, further out into the Gulf. But
right. Yeah, this is kind of what I was saying before, with hoping that that combination of what's traditionally like traditionally, from what I grew up with, the right cares more about positive economic activity and productivity and profit, and the left cares a little more about the environment. But at a certain point, the environment becomes such an existential risk, even to the economy, that the right should value its stewardship, just as the left should appreciate that we can do so with economic activity. And I hope that we can start, running ships more efficiently, and exploring alternatives to chemical processes, or using chemicals that are biodegradable and not a negative to the life of our ecosystems, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know how close we are to that, but I would love to see that be a thing.
Absolutely. And, the oil would mainly stay at the top of the surface of the water. And we know that algae will clean even the oil up. And I know in a process like that, an emergency spill, it would be kind of difficult, but I know it would be more detailed and a little more time consuming to clean it in a more natural manner. But that's what's necessary if we're looking at the health of our planet and our people. It's going to have to include a little more time, because generally natural remedies and treatments and solutions do take a little bit more time, but they tend to work much better, much more efficient as far as the whole picture is concerned.
Right. If you get past the obsession with quarterly profit, you find that over the long term, it's more profitable to do it in these other ways.
Right. And fortunately, our society is becoming more wise. We're a more wise society today than, with all the lessons that we have learned through time. So my other concern is, once you address things in the water, we have to also address things in the sky. So there's a big debate, and a lot of people are not believing that the cloud seeding is made with chemical processes. And that's absolutely, there's no doubt about it. There's facts for what they're actually using in the cloud seeding.
Oh, Misty. Last week on the Club MAHA podcast, we had like one of the best guests ever, Jim Lee. He is an absolute legend in the space, and he just completely broke it down for us. And what he explained, there aren't like special devices on these planes where they like decide to shoot out the chemtrail chemicals. It's literally just the jet fuel.
No, that is absolute. That is an absolute farce.
I don't think it's true. I'm still a novice to this issue, but here's the thing. The jet fuel itself is kerosene. The kerosene itself has borium, cadmium, aluminum. It has all these heavy metals in it. And when it burns, sulfur, and when it burns, it does not burn cleanly. And the thing that we identify as chemtrails is the jets, when they fly through a dense water environment, it produces contrails, but those contrails are loaded with the emissions of the jet fuel. And then what happens is it creates a cloud. It starts off looking like a contrail, which we would call a chemtrail. That chemtrail expands outward, and depending on how high in the environment and the weather conditions, it'll turn into a cirrus cloud. And again, that cirrus cloud is loaded with these compounds, this aluminum, the borium, the cadmium, the all these heavy metals. Those heavy metals stay in the air for a while. If it's low enough, they fall over the course of hours to like a couple of weeks, they fall down to the ground. And they end up in the air we breathe. They end up in our soil. If the plane is flying above a certain level, all those elements actually get brought up even higher into the atmosphere and hang out for months. And here's the scary thing. Whether we see those particulates in the form of clouds because they went through a moisture-rich environment and became the seeds, like literally the seeds for the clouds, whether we see that or not, those pollutants are in the air. So when we look up and we go, oh no, chemtrails, or we look up and we don't see chemtrails and go, oh, okay, I guess it's fine, it's actually kind of the same either way, except for the albedo effect. So if you don't see the clouds formed, it's not providing as much of an albedo effect. Now, during the day, that creates a cooling effect. At night, that creates a warming effect, a heat blanket. But either way, all the time, if that jet is flying, it is pumping pollutants into the atmosphere. And the interesting thing he pointed out, and I actually have some history with this, for ground transportation, we actually did a fair amount to, I don't want to say solve, but alleviate to some degree this same problem. Because for ground transportation, especially in cargo, we required 18-wheelers, these tractor trailers, to run on what's called ultra-low sulfur diesel. So it's diesel fuel that has a far lower concentration of sulfur per million in the fuel. And so our tractor trailers don't kick out nearly as much pollution as they did, 25, 35, 40, 50 years ago. But we haven't passed that same kind of regulation for aeronautic fuel, in part because it would cost more, and there's companies now that are trying to innovate on that and make it happen. And I really, it's okay if you disagree. I'm not telling you that Jim Lee is absolutely right. I can only say that he was very convincing and had a lot of studies and images and whatnot to back it up. But I highly encourage you to go back and listen to the last Club MAHA podcast, because it was a wonderful presentation. It's 2 hours of him just going off, and every once in a while us peppering him with a prompt that allowed him to go off for another 10, 20, 30 minutes. It was fantastic. And it was really just sort of his explanation of the problem. We didn't even get into solutions because we only do it for 2 hours. We're totally going to bring him back for a part 2 and maybe even a part 3. Please go check that out. If you go over in Club MAHA, I can't tell if they're still up on stage as a co-host, because on the Club MAHA account, it looks like they are. On my account, it looks like they're a listener. But if you can see the Club MAHA podcast account here in the space, green PFP, Club MAHA in big letters, click on it, give them a follow. That's a project I helped co-found. And one of the first posts you'll see on the feed is our most recent episode. It's Jim Lee. It's a presentation on chemtrails. It's fantastic.
Okay, is in the I can't remember right now what y'all call that up there in the
here, I can post it in the nest.
yeah, the nest.
AKA the Jumbotron. I have no idea what the best practices are for that yet, but yep, here we go. Chemtrail deep dive, boom, posted in the nest. That was our most recent episode. It's phenomenal. I was really impressed with Jim. And the thing that really, and I want to let you respond here, but the thing that impressed me most with Jim's presentation is it takes out a lot of the complexity of the air quotes conspiracy theory around chemtrails. And it's not some crazy conspiracy that all the pilots and all the mechanics and all the everything have to be in on. It's the fuel. If a plane is in the air, it is kicking out the crap that's creating these chemtrails. It just is doing it by nature of how it operates.
Well, I understand that. I've heard that theory before. And before this theory, actually, this is the first time that I've heard it's from the fuel and this, that, and the other. Before, it was just it's the water vapors that, condensation from the heat of the engine or whatever.
But it sort of is. The thing that the fuel is contributing to it is that for a cloud to form, it needs a seed, and that could be a grain of dust. But the jet fuel has these heavy metal particles. Clouds form around something. It's the moisture forming around a seed, a molecule of something. And so if you're pumping out all these heavy metal molecules into the atmosphere and you're flying through a high moisture environment, you are pumping out seeds for a cloud.
Well, I don't know about the dust or dirt specks being able to form a cloud. I mean, but because that just seems like it goes against the whole concept. But I do know that there was a whistleblower that came out a decade ago, and he even had a video where he showed these gigantic keg-looking things and the hoses and everything coming out. But my question is
he talked about that in the podcast, but continue.
Right. But my question there is, well, how did project or concept come about cloud seeding. And I just turned 50 recently, and I know whenever I was a child and I saw streams coming out of jets, they were short and stayed close to the jet, and now then they stay in the sky for days. So I don't really believe that concept, but so between the whistleblower and seeing the difference from whenever I was a child to compared to now, it just doesn't make sense. And then also, it just doesn't make sense for that to be the effect, because that way it would be every jet would be doing that.
So what Jim explained, not to cut you off, but
it's okay.
Yeah. But he talked about this. For one thing, the number of planes in the air. We now have, even compared to 2 decades ago, we're now having like 40 million flights per, I think, year. And it's up like double or triple from even 20 years ago. So there's just more of them. But they've also learned about altitudes and humidity systems, like water density systems. And so they strategically fly at different altitudes in order to avoid or proactively encourage these clouds. Because, right, like the global warming folks, they want a global cooling effect. So, like, for instance, KML Airlines, which is, I believe, a European airline, specifically works with an organization that Bill Gates helped to found, along with some climate warriors. And it's an algorithm and a global data set that lets them know exactly when and where water systems are essentially in the sky and at what altitude, so that during the day they can intentionally fly through them, and at night they can avoid them. And it has to do with where the where the layer is between the atmosphere as we know it and the atmosphere above that. I can't remember the name of the stratosphere. And so if they fly what on average is 39,000 feet, if they fly below that, it's likely to make clouds, especially if it's a water system. If they fly above that, it's less likely to make clouds, and they can choose how high to fly. But it's that plus there just being more planes in the air.
I appreciate that information. I live in a semi-arid area that's turning into a desert, which it more looks like a desert. But whenever I was a child, we would get snow in our area that would come up, like 1.5 feet. And now then we're lucky if we get snow that coats the ground every other year or every 3 years. So we've gotten less precipitation in the same timeline that we've been seeing these trails that stay for extended amounts of time. And then on top of that, it's like the leadership of the world, such as Bill Gates, want to outdo what nature is able to do.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, and so in that fact is all we have to do is if we plant more trees, there's going to end up being more cloud formation.
Right, more oxygen, more water vapor in the air.
Right, because the trees will emit they will help the condensation and water vapor process and speed that up. And we've lost so many trees, over time. So there's a lot of people planting trees, but that is one surefire way to be able to increase precipitation in a natural manner.
Mm-hmm.
The more vegetation that there is, it will help to produce more water and rain. So that's one concept. If we go to the edges of the areas that the rainfall is depleted, we can plant trees, and in time, if we're at the edges of the areas that do have more rainfall, it will help to extend that water cycle.
Yeah, true. And it's interesting too, right? Because for instance, the Amazon rainforest, It has been described as the lungs of the world, though that kind of underplays the impact of algae in creating oxygen. But it is an incredibly important part of the global hydrological cycle, is the Amazon rainforest. And we've lost a lot of it for unsustainable cattle ranching, because they all get fed like soybeans instead of being grass fed and all that. So it's not just more trees, it's in concentration and where.
Right.
You know, so just like a
On the
tree here and a
edges.
tree there, which is good locally, but doesn't necessarily have the same impact on the global hydrological cycle. But yeah,
Right.
for
It
sure.
has to be. They have to be planted in patches, and such as on the African continent, they have gone to the edges of the rainforest and planted more trees all across the continent in order to try to help encourage growth and discourage the desertification.
I've seen
of the
really
area.
cool stuff. I've seen really cool projects in Africa. Yeah, for instance, the reclaiming land from the desert through these forest plantings, but also really interesting techniques like if you dig a small round depression, you know, like a few yards wide circle, it actually concentrates dew and can then foster grasses, and those grasses become seeds for a savanna, which becomes like stage 1 of turning sand, essentially desert, into arable land. Seen really interesting stuff like that. But even that needs to be taken into account with the global hydrological cycle. And this goes back to sand, dust essentially in the atmosphere being important for cloud seeding. The Amazon rainforest is actually fed in part by sand particulates that get blown up into the atmosphere in Africa, hit the jet stream, and get carried over the ocean. And then when they get over the South American continent, over Brazil, that turns into rainfall, which feeds the Amazon rainforest.
Well, going back to what you were saying about dew, that's part of how people are capturing some of the natural condensation, is by spreading tarps out, and the tarps will collect dew, and then, you know, if it's at a slight angle, they can collect it into rain barrels. And so the same thing is with mulch. If there's mulch on the ground, it will hold on to that dew and cool the surface of the ground so that the water has a chance to be able to seep into the ground, and the mulch helps to hold on to it and cools the ground.
Same with mycelial networks, mushrooms essentially. Those networks can retain moisture. And then things like taprooted plants like sunflower or hemp do a great job of pulling moisture and nutrients from deeper down in the water table up towards the surface.
Yeah, but they're also consuming a lot more of that water. Those plants are high water plants where they have to consume more water of their own, and that can contribute, as they disperse the water. But anyways, I will go ahead and switch to my next concern, which is, like, as far as our health is concerned, the nanoparticles that Bill Gates is now putting into our products and our food products. And that's something that I feel like needs to be stopped. He's pitched the program to be able to allow the manufacturing of the foods to be more streamlined and efficient, and so that it just makes no sense to me, because Coca-Cola has been the same liquid in past years as it is today. And I think they started putting nanoparticles in the Coca-Cola products a little over a year ago. So
do you know what they are?
I haven't researched it extensively yet, but that's why it's something that I want to bring up here.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And I just, like, as quickly as possible, I like to get from these more general statements of like, I heard that such and such, into, okay, here's what that actually is, and then here's what we know about that thing, and here's what we can do about the knowing about that thing. So I'd be super curious if anyone else knows anything about it. I appreciate you bringing it up.
As far as I understand, the nanoparticles are because things can, the surface of the nanoparticle can move through and help the distribution.
Did we lose you? Might have lost your audio there for a second. Still with us, Misty? I know that these product producers like to use things that like stabilizers. You'll see in a lot of like, for instance, ice cream. Super frustrating. They can call ice cream as long as it has a certain level of milk fat, but then they'll also use things like carrageenan and other sorts of binders and emulsifiers to give it a creamier taste and texture. And it's just additive crap. It's just garbage. And it's super frustrating to me. Did we get you back? Can I hear you, Misty?
Yes, I'm sorry about that. What was that you were saying?
Oh, well, I was just sort of filling some space until you came back. But like, you're talking about these nanoparticles, and what it sounded like you were describing is that they found an additive to their products that would maybe both stabilize and evenly distribute the things that they include for flavor, or something like that.
Stabilization, yes. I don't know that it has anything to do with the flavor, but just, yes, the stabilization
makes them more shelf stable for longer or whatnot.
And during production, from what I understand.
Yep, and they don't have to do any research on it, because they can just say, hey, we checked and this is safe. But that's over now. I'm sure most folks here know that Bobby ended the grass loophole, and is now going to proceed to go back through the like 10,000 chemicals that corporations decided on their own was safe, and decide which ones stay and which ones go.
Well, hopefully so, but it would be nice to see the food production and product production be able to be distributed more across the nation, so that the shelf life and that type of thing doesn't have to be tampered with in non-natural ways.
I'm really into that as well, or even just figuring out natural ways to do so.
Yes.
But yeah, I agree. I like decentralized production, not just for the reasons of not having to worry as much about self-stability, but that also distributes the economic benefit. Local manufacturing equals local jobs equals local economic empowerment.
Yeah, but you can find the article about it being put in Coca-Cola. It's public.
Yeah, if you have it handy or know which search terms to use and can find it, I encourage you to toss it up into the nest for us.
Sure, I'll try to do that. I've never put anything in the nest. I'm not sure exactly how to do that.
Yeah, no worries. If it's already a post on X and you're a speaker in a space, you can hit the little 3-dot drop-down menu, and one of your share options, it'll be right up at the top, is to share it into the space. You'll see the title of the space, and what that does is it actually puts it right into the nest. And as long as you're a speaker, you can do that.
Okay, I don't see a share option from my drop down at the 3 dots.
Well, so it is an X post.
I'm not sure, but I'll search it up and find it.
So what you do is, if it's already an X post, you go to that post, and then you hit the 3-dot drop down on that post, and the top option will be the name of this space. Gotcha. If it's not already a post, then what you can do is you can either post it to your own timeline or down in the purple pill. For these spaces, you just need to follow, like join the Club MAHA community, and then you can post in the purple pill for these spaces. And then once it's there, you can do the same thing. Just hit that 3-dot and share it into the nest.
Okay, sure. I'll work on trying to find that for you.
Cool. Thank you so
much. I enjoyed the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
I appreciate you coming up, and I'm grateful to you, and I hope you keep coming back. And I hope that was a nice demonstration for everyone else, that if you got something on your mind, whether it's a topic that you are personally an expert on or just something you heard, please drop it in the pill. Come up on stage. Let's talk it out. I'm really happy to hear what you have to say, what you're worried about, what you're working on. That matters here. This is very much a community space, even if we don't have many speakers on stage and it's kind of me just ranting. I much prefer these really nice conversations because we all have something to say or something we care about, and our voices really matter. And that matters to me. Hey, Dirt, how you doing?
Pretty good. How are y'all doing today?
Doing all right, man. Welcome to the stage.
For us to get healthy, we're going to have to start with the food and the animals.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that people are discussing, it's all in one. I disagree with you about the chemtrails. I saw that documentary too. And they actually recruit Air Force officers that don't have any family or anything to get to do it. But I won't go into that because, I mean, I know more about food and animals than just that's something that I'm very interested in. He was talking earlier about different things, and poultry, chicken, or turkeys is the cheapest protein that a family can put on the table.
Mm-hmm.
So,
not as nutrient dense as like a good grass-fed cow, but it's definitely the most affordable animal protein.
Yes, but what I'm saying is when the housewife or the person's shopping and they've got to put a meat on the table, usually the chicken or pork is the cheaper alternative.
For sure.
So 30 years ago, it took 14 weeks to grow a whole fryer. Now they grow a larger bird in 8 weeks. Half the time, larger bird. A human is like 80% liquid. A bird is like 5%, 10%. So they pump as much liquid as they can in these birds. And you were talking about arsenic earlier. They worm birds with arsenic.
Ugh.
That's how they get rid of heartworms in dogs too.
Mm-hmm.
But these now growth hormones can be disguised in several different ways. Like I've tested birds and sent to the lab that had a lot of residues, and the creatine is a natural, basically occurring thing, and they pump it in food. I've talked to growers that have been told not to eat a bird out of their own house. They flush these birds the last week before they go to slaughter, kind of like somebody that has to go take a piss test at the end of the month, so that nothing shows up in the tests that are taken. So when they mass produce chickens and put the small farmer, that's the main step of controlling the flocks. And in chickens and in pork really especially, hogs carry trichinosis all the time. It's a type of worm. So they use that to start these hog farms that are totally bio. You have to get in a hazmat suit to go in to inspect them.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to take a shower and stuff when you come out of it. But that, under the thing about controlling diseases, basically let them set them up to where a hog's immunity, they'd never experienced anything. So in with pumping them full of growth hormones and the different things to get more weight. Weight is money. They're basically taking the food value out of the animal meat. Anytime you grow anything faster, it takes the food value somewhat out of it.
Totally.
So
and you see this with produce as well. The soil's depleted and they try to maximize output and they don't care. Carrot is carrot to them.
So they've controlled our chicken and they've controlled our hogs. I've even inspected a rabbit plant before. But cattle, they're really going after cattle. I'm talking about the devil himself, Bill Gates, he wants to vaccinate cattle. He wants to put them on an electronic ear tag where they can tell how many cattle are people. That's a bunch of bull. Now, I see a friend of mine down here that's a cattleman. One thing I disagree with, a heifer, a heifer is a female cow that hadn't had a calf yet.
Mm-hmm.
Used to, at the sale barn, steers would sell for 20 cents a pound, 30 cents a pound, more than a heifer calf. Because when a heifer gets about 700 or 800 pounds, which is about the weight that they send them to put them on feed at a feedlot, they hit them with they call this a growth hormone, but it's a male hormone, and it keeps them from cycling. When a heifer's about that age, it's about when she starts coming in and out of heat, and that disrupts the feedlot. They start riding each other, and it's just chaos, and they don't gain weight. So to fix that, they have been using male hormones as a growth supplement, along with other things. And I seem to wonder maybe if the residues might be passed on to people. But as far as, like as we eat, I'm also vaccine injured. I was forced to take the shot. I was called in my office and told to either go take the shot or go home, and I'd be reported AWOL. 6 months later,
This was a military forced vaccination.
USDA inspector, sir.
USDA inspector. Got it. And
about 9 months after I had the shot, there's no heart disease in my family whatsoever. Never really. I had a heart attack. I was out of town.
Oh, man.
I just woke up and felt like somebody beat me with a baseball bat.
So you figure spike protein?
Yes. And, one thing you mentioned when you was talking about spike proteins, the spike proteins are 100 times smaller than a human cell. And they can self-assimilate. In other words, they can talk to each other. That sounds weird, but they can all gather up in one group somewhere.
And they can cross easily through membranes and into organs, into your brain.
Exactly.
Yep.
If I cut an animal open or you cut it open and let me look at it, I can tell you what it died of. Unfortunately, I can't look at a human's liver and heart and lungs without cutting them open, but I can see it through, basically other measures. But what I'm seeing one thing I'm really interested in is these morticians and doing autopsies on corpses that's died. And in the cardiovascular system and in the veins, it looks to me like they got bit by a snake. Everyone I see this white cottony looking.
Oh, I've seen these. I've seen a bunch of posts about these. And like some people assume they were clots, but they're not clots. This is something else.
It's snake venom. It's exactly what I see. I'm no doctor. I was a butcher for 20 years and USDA inspector for 14. But I've seen all kinds of diseases in animals over the years, all different kinds of animals. And I'm multi-species. But that is snake venom somehow that's in their veins that's clotting. It looks kind of like a white spider web or a white piece of cotton, and it can flow, and then but there's several the cultures that they made and I'm no microbiologist. I have taken microbiology, but to create this vaccine, they just kind of picked all kinds of little cultures that they made it out of.
And this reminds me, not to interrupt you, of Ozempic, where they said there's some sort of lizard venom in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, I plain and simple, this is out to kill us. All this shit is out to kill us. I mean, when you leave animals alone, and let me give you another example. I was talking about people putting these growth hormones in heifers. I had a Charolais cow, I had a baby calf, and as soon as she had the calf, she was a great looking cow. As soon as she had the calf, she didn't lick it off. She didn't do nothing. She just walked away from it. Didn't have no instincts whatsoever. Raised that heifer calf up on the bottle. In fact, my niece wanted it, and she took it and finished raising it. It grew up, had a baby calf, did the same thing. Didn't even look at the calf, just walked off and left it. So you think that those male hormones may be taking away some
maternal instinct?
Okay, the same thing. There's a hatchery in Springfield, Missouri that's been there for years. You can order baby chicks. Well, out of 30 baby chicks right now, you'll be lucky to get 6 or 7 of them that will actually set eggs. In other words, they've got the instincts to still set eggs. They bred it out of them.
Set eggs meaning that after they lay an egg, they actually sit on it to incubate?
Yeah, when a hen's setting eggs, when you reach for the eggs, she'll peck your hand or whatever. She'll keep you away from her eggs. And they don't have that instinct anymore. Or very few do. And this has been a process of breeding it. You know, they want, like I said, weight is money. So they want them to grow faster, grow bigger. And I don't know if anybody else notices this, but chicken don't taste like it used to. It doesn't taste like it used to at all.
I've noticed this with a number of foods.
And it's for that reason.
Eggs don't taste the same either.
No, they sure don't.
I remember as a kid, there was a very distinctive taste, and I haven't tasted that in a very long time, even from like good farms.
So as we harness everything that people's going to eat, so we can decide to poison them which way, whatever, then we turn around as y'all were talking about the water. You know, I live in the great state of Arkansas, and we have a lot of millionaires in Northwest Arkansas. We've got the Waltons, we've got Tyson, we've got J.B. Hunt. It's funny how they come to a right-to-work state to make their millions. But anyway, it's also, when Clinton was governor of Arkansas, we all of a sudden got a whole bunch of Somalians stationed around every Tyson plant. That's kind of funny, isn't it?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And Hillary was on the board of Walmart back in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. You know, Walmart killed every small town in the country.
I know it. I remember when Walmart moved into my town here in Maryland, and literally, I mean figuratively, but literally the center of gravity for our entire town moved from 2 blocks away from my house to down by the highway where they put the Walmart in. It was sad.
Hey, they just built a campus in Bentonville that is like 100 acres. They're going to have their own college there. They've got a computer that's bigger than NORAD.
Dear God.
So
probably just for logistics too.
Yeah, but getting back to meat, and you know, there's a lot more people that know more about the vaccine injuries. I've studied everything I can, everything I get my hands on about it. And my mother died of cancer 25 years ago, and she had battled cancer twice, and she had went to MD Anderson because my sister lived in Houston, and they had put her on tamoxifen, which was experimental back then, and her cancer PSA count had got down to like under 10. And she came back to Northwest Arkansas, and this famous oncologist, Dr. Beck, said that he called me out in the hallway and asked me, you know, what have you been giving your mom? And I told him like raspberry and just all the different supplements that I had read about. And he said, I want to give her 1 round of chemotherapy as a precautionary. And he'd already asked my mom, but he wanted to get my okay. And he gave her that round of chemotherapy, and it freaking killed her.
Doesn't surprise me at all, man. I've been saying for a long time, the medical industry has been just predicated on pills, knives, and radiation.
Well, I'll give you what led up to this. And like I said, there's a root to all things. Like, we need to heal our animals first and our crops. But I have one sister that was crippled from the time she was 6 years old. She had juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. But my mom went with her through all these surgeries and stuff. And mom had developed ulcers in her colon. And her doctor, her general doctor then, told her to get completely off any kind of grease or dairy products and to use Pam to cook with, and Teflon, and her whole diet changed, and that's what gave her cancer. Up into that, we butchered our own beef, we butchered our own hogs, we even grew and butchered our own chickens. I mean, I grew up on a small family farm. We pretty much ate everything we grew.
Love that, man.
But yeah, I thought my dad was a slave driver as a kid. I couldn't understand why other kids didn't have to work like I did. But anyway, that diet in itself, I mean, Pam is, and a lot of people, these seed oils if I go through the house, throw out all the seed oils, cook with lard, buy Armor Mantaca lard and cook with lard, or save your beef tallow. But anyway, then, this chemotherapy, and I've heard people say it's got the same chemicals as mustard gas. So I researched that. And I've also, I'm a veteran and I've studied military science. But in World War II, we used mustard gas, and it's the one thing that it shares with chemotherapy is sulfur dioxide, which, if anybody's ever smelled sulfur, it stinks. And when you light it on fire, it's yellow. That is actually in chemotherapy.
Egg farts. Sulfur.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. And also, I don't know if people, but when you give a round of chemotherapy, it kills T cells, and the cancer cell actually develops a scab, a thicker, thin skin over itself. So chemotherapy doesn't do a bit of good. It's just poison. And I've posted stuff about this. I feel like people get tired of hearing it or they already know it. There's so many people waking up to these things. I feel like I repeat myself on some things, but cancer it's caused from our food and our diets. And if you live in cities, go out, and I guarantee you, if you'll walk up and if you see cows out in the field next to somebody's house, you can walk up, knock on a farmer's door, and unless you got a gun or something, he's going to be nice to you. And a lot of times you can get them to grow you a calf and take it to the butcher for you. I mean, just look for ways to support your local farmers.
Speaking of which,
90% of our farmers in the United States are over 60 years old.
Oh man, that's a scary
75% of our farmers are over 70 years old.
That's scary.
As young people like you, young man, as they grow up on the farm, they migrate to big cities because they've been told for years, you got to go get a college education, you got to go somewhere and get a big time job. And the other thing is when grandpa and grandma die off, a lot of times the kids can't afford the inheritance tax.
Mm-hmm.
The not capital gains, the inheritance tax. So they
the estate tax, I believe, is called.
Yeah, they can't afford to pay the taxes to keep the farm. So I guess I've been on a little bit of rant, but as far as our food supply, it's like China's death by 10,000 cuts.
Yep.
It's our water, it's our food, it's our air, it's our soil.
Yep.
And like I said, we've got to get our animals healthy. And to have animals healthy, you've got to have they condemned a part of Arkansas and quit letting us spread manure. Said that it was polluting the Illinois River. Well, then all the farmers had to buy ammonium nitrate fertilizer, which, basically is like giving your soil crack cocaine. I mean, it'll pop the grass up, but it really doesn't give it food value.
Right. And that stuff leaches into the water too.
Oh yeah.
Ammonia in the water don't help.
Oh,
Having too
yeah.
much phosphorus and things like that in the water, that don't help.
It's a lot better just to pile up manure and let it set for a year and then use it on your farm.
That's how the ecosystem works. The poop feeds the soil. It's just the natural cycle.
Exactly. Well, I'll stop with that. And it's interesting. I like to listen. I was told a long time ago that you learn a lot more with your ears than you do with your mouth. But everybody have a good day and eat healthy. Support your local farmers.
True statement. Dirt, I appreciate you, man. That was a good one. That was a good rant. I appreciate you. Come on back anytime, brother. Speaking of supporting your local farmers and ranchers, we do have a wonderful relationship with a project called the Beef Initiative. They're fantastic. They have a network of ranchers, like small family ranchers across the country. And if you go to, and I'll post this in the nest too, if you go to Beef Initiative, beefiniative.com/pages/Club MAHA, you can get some of the finest beef in the country, in the world even. It is I just posted it up in the nest from Ebersol Ranch and a couple of the other ranches in their network. I've got some of their ground beef in my freezer right now. I'm about to order some of their steaks. They're a wonderful organization doing fantastic work. They also have a nonprofit called the Texas Slim Foundation. Texas Slim is one of the founders of the Beef Initiative. And we work with them to try to help people find some of the highest quality meat they can find, they can eat. And when you buy from them, you are basically buying directly from the rancher rather than hoping that your local grocery store has meat that's not just labeled grass-fed and grass-finished, but is also being raised with love and care from a small family rancher. I cannot recommend it enough. That link is up in the nest, beefiniative.com/pages/Club MAHA. I promise it will be some of the cleanest and most delicious meat you've ever had in your life, and you'll be supporting small family ranchers. So, Dirt, great shout on that one, brother. We've got like 10 minutes left. Not to put you on the spot, but Hope, if you still wanted to chime in here, I'd love to have you.
Okay, I'll be quick. I want to just say one thing about the weather modification stuff.
Sure.
Is that there's a bill in front of the legislature. It's going to die in committee here in Texas, but it's modifying our agricultural code, Title IX, Chapter 302. There is actually a weather modification and control grant program that's been around since 2003, where not only
at the state level,
not at the state of Texas, not only are we allowing it, and this bill would have just made it so that governmental entities could no longer do cloud seeding, but there is a grant program that has been around since 2003 where our state tax dollars are paying for these weather modification programs. So I haven't watched the video, but I just want to say that something exists because it's in our ag code.
Yeah, right.
So anyway.
Well, and there are for sure companies that are specifically focused on, and they'll call it geoengineering, they'll call it cloud seeding, they call it whatever they call it, but it's, it's chemtrails, it's whatever.
So anyway,
and it's super,
But I wanted to encourage everybody real quick, talk about small farmers. I'm a city girl that grew up in the city. My parents grew up in the city. Didn't know the first thing about anything. A year and a half ago, I had experience in the world in my career where I knew we were putting smart meters on suburban water meters in the 90s, and everybody was getting these water filters. I said, if somebody just flipped a switch, there'd nothing be coming out of the faucet. So anyway, I moved to the country because I wanted a well, and I have since had 4 rounds of meat chickens successfully raised and processed. It is possible. Those things aren't very loud either, and most cities will allow you quiet chickens. So I'm just saying, growing your own food it's daunting and scary, but it is completely doable.
Yeah, and you can start so small.
Oh yeah.
You can start by throwing some green onions in a mason jar with a little water and putting it on the windowsill next to your kitchen sink.
But you can grow meat chickens. Seriously, just go to Tractor Supply, get a couple, and 8 weeks later you've got a fryer. So
Yep.
That's all I wanted to say.
I love it, and it's a great shout. You can start small, or you can be a little more ambitious. In city and suburban environments, in a lot of places, you are absolutely allowed to have some chickens, maybe even a little goat or whatever. You can do it. You can absolutely do it. And if an animal is too daunting, or you just couldn't imagine yourself slaughtering your own meat, I mean, in some cases, you can just take it to a butcher and they'll handle that process start to finish.
In most cases, that's the case. The butchers will take care of that as long as you can transport them up there.
Yeah. But do not feel daunted. Start with a jar in your windowsill if you need to, or a potted plant out on your back stoop. Whatever you can do just to get a little closer to the process of food growing, living things becoming your nourishment is really a beautiful thing. I got some green onions I bought at the farmer's market a couple weeks ago, sitting in my sill right now. Yeah, I appreciate you, Hope. Thanks for chiming in here.
Yeah, y'all have a blessed day. Thanks for having the space.
For sure. Bumble, what's happening?
Hey, good to meet you. Listen, I'm not a troll. I have frozen vocal cords from chemo and radiation.
Oh my goodness.
Destiny can confirm that I'm not a troll.
I saw some of our mutual follows. That's why I was like, okay, let's get this person up here.
So, I'm also vaccine injured, but I like to share briefly some of my own personal experiences.
Please.
After my vaccine injury, when I was laying in bed sleeping, and then I would awaken, I would, rub my eyes, and then I would go to the bathroom and look in the mirror. And what I saw back in ancient times, they were called the tears of Ra. They were blood tears. I was bleeding out through my eyes.
Oh my God.
I'm not doing that anymore. Additionally, I've had wounds on my arms and wrist that I have produced long, stringy blood clots out of. And also, lastly, when I was a kid, I was stung in Nova Scotia by a Portuguese man of war. And when I went to the hospital, I witnessed a doctor removing long, stringy clots from my arm. From the vaccine injury, I suffered irreversible heart damage. And so, I'm surprised that I'm even able to speak to you, but I just felt it worthwhile to let everybody know that. Thank you.
Bumble, thank you for sharing. I'm so sorry to hear about your health troubles. I'm praying that the work we're doing together, the communities we're building, that this is our moment. The pressure has built. Too many of us care too much, and we really do have an opportunity here and now to make the changes necessary. And I'm just I'm so sorry to hear your story, but I'm also grateful for you sharing it. On sort of a brighter note, it sounds like you've lived quite a storied life, and I hope you find meaning in the experiences that you've had. Obviously, none of us want to be sick. We don't want our friends, our neighbors, and even perfect strangers being sick and suffering these things. But there's an incredible amount of meaning and purpose that we can find in the challenges that we experience in our lives. And I pray that you have the experience of meaning and purpose. And I'm grateful for you sharing your story, and I hope you continue to do so. You're always welcome back here. I'll recognize your PFP and your display name. we are coming to the end of our 2 hours. I've got to go visit my mom. I'm really grateful for you guys. I love you so much. I see so many familiar faces here. Luis, Julie, Ed, DT Dubs, Rhett. If I miss any of you guys,